debate, presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich said he'd seen one, so has Jimmy Carter. So did a pilot who traveled from Iran to Washington so he could speak out today about his encounter with the UFO. Now, unidentified flying object means just that, unidentified. It says nothing about what or from where. But for years now, polling has shown that a majority of Americans believe the government, our government, simply isn't telling all it knows about those lights in the sky, whatever they are. Well, tonight, CNN's Gary Tuchman investigates.
If you flew on Air France from Nice to London on January 28, 1994, your captain says he saw a UFO 1,000 feet long just outside your window.
It seemed to be a huge flying disc.
The now retired pilot is one of 14 men, mainly former government and military officials from 7 different countries, talking about their UFO experiences.
It disappeared in about 10 to 20 seconds.
This conference took place in Washington, and the cast of characters was almost strangely, well, conventional. One of the believers, former governor of Arizona, Fife Symington.
I saw something that defied logic and challenged my reality.
During a visit to Phoenix, Symington described to me what he saw.
If you had been here 10 years ago and standing out here and looking up there at the lights and the view, you would have been astounded. You would have been amazed.
The so-called Phoenix lights were seen by many people in 1997. Skeptics say they were military aircraft or flares, but not the former governor.
It was probably some form of an alien spacecraft.
Lots of agreement on this panel. This retired Iranian Air Force pilot said he saw a UFO while flying.
It looked similar to a star, but bigger and brighter.
General Parviz Jafari says he tried to fire a missile, but much of his plane became inoperative.
All the instrument was fluctuating, the radio had garbled, even I couldn't have communication with my pilot in my back seat with operating the radar.
So none of your equipment worked, your missiles didn't work. Do you think it's because this was an alien from another world? You're sure of that?
Yeah, I'm sure.
This retired U.S. Air Force sergeant stationed in England said he walked up to a UFO that landed in a forest.
It maneuvered through the trees and shot off at an unbelievable rate of speed.
A man running for president just said he saw a UFO.
I did, and the rest of the account, well, it was unidentified flying object.
And so did a man who was president.
I and about 25 others saw something in the air that changed colors and was round and came...
Although Jimmy Carter says he doesn't think it was from another planet, most of these people differ on that point and want the FAA to investigate all these claims. But the FAA says that's not its job. We manage the aircraft that we're talking to. UFOs are called UFOs because they're unidentified, and we're not talking to them. And it's precisely because no one's talking that everybody here is trying harder to make them believe. Gary Tuchman, CNN, Washington.
Well, we're going to talk with the man who organized the conference coming up next. He also made a film investigating 50 years what he calls official contradictions and denials. We'll also hear from a noted astronomer and UFO skeptic. We'll be right back. We like to present you with facts and information from different angles and let you make up your own minds about things. That's particularly true with mysteries. And for many Americans, there's no mystery greater than UFOs. James Fox helped organize today's UFO-related event in Washington. He directed the film Out of the Blue. He joins me now, along with astronomer, former Air Force pilot and skeptic, James McGahey. Thanks for being with us, both of you. Let me start off with you, James Fox. You helped organize the panel. Why? What are you hoping to accomplish?
We want to establish the fact that the phenomenon is real and it's taking place worldwide. And the reason why we got a panel of 14 high-ranking military and government officials from 7 countries who these guys officially investigated these cases for their governments and military. So it's not like private investigators. These are official military and government people.
But, James Fox, to those who say, look, there's no actual evidence, I mean, there's no recovered spacecraft, there's no actual evidence, what do you say?
I say, well, we got photographic, radar confirmation, visual confirmation, landing trace cases. There were imprints in the ground for where these things were reportedly landed. You know, and these government and military officials are telling us these things are real. I think we should listen.
James McGahey, I know you're skeptical. Why?
Well, UFOs are basically a modern space-age mythology. It's a conspiracy wrapped in superstition and myth and magic. People see lights in the sky and somehow they equate those lights in the sky to spacecraft from another world. It's really wish fulfillment. It's almost a fairy tale among many people to believe that somehow either doom or salvation is coming from the sky. It's a very old concept in human thinking. But I should say, when we talk about pilots, there's this incredible misidentification idea about pilots being trained observers. Pilots are not trained observers. They're trained to fly airplanes. They are some of the worst people at identifying objects in the sky than aren't other airplanes. They're trained to react quickly in an airplane, which very often makes them react to wrong stimuli.
James Fox, what about that?
Okay, let me say something. Mr. McGaha, although I do respect your opinion on this, you keep misleading the public when you say that these are ambiguous distant lights off at a distance. These are not. These are unambiguous, up-close and personal cases where, in one case in Bentwaters in 1980, they actually touched the UFO on the ground. And this was witnessed by 80 people.
I am quite skeptical that anyone touched anything at Bentwaters.
Well,
and it wasn't at Bentwaters, it was actually at Woodbridge.
With all due respect, sir, I don't think you were there.
James McGahey, why shouldn't there be more investigation? Why should, what this panel was calling for essentially is some sort of government investigation of it. Why shouldn't there be further investigation?
Well, there have been investigations, and it was. Well, hang on a second. Let me just state this clearly. One of the things you keep interrupting me, sir. Please. One of the things I want to mention very quickly is that the official position from the Air Force is that they terminated Project Blue Book in 1969, and there have been no official investigations since then. However, we found evidence to suggest the contrary on a number of cases. In Tehran, the general said the Americans were making discrete inquiries about the case there, as well as Bentwaters, England. The colonel said that the OSI came in and investigated that case.
So you believe there is a government investigation going on, you just want it more public?
They're making discrete inquiries unofficially, yes.
James McGahey, final thoughts.
Yes, they are making discrete inquiries about strange things that happen, not about UFOs or alien spacecraft. That's not what's going on at all.
They're responsible for the security and deployment of nuclear weapons. If you think they're out there hallucinating, why do they all get promoted?
Well,
we're gonna have to leave it there.
If we had time, I could actually tell you what happened that night. It's very prosaic, involving lights in the sky, and that's all.
It's not lights in the sky, sir. Thank you.
No doubt a debate we're not going to settle tonight, but we do appreciate you guys talking about it. James Fox, James McGahey. Thank you.
Now, here's the big story we should have led with.
Exactly right. At the National Press Club today, there's going to be a number of retired Air Force personnel who are going to say that they have witnessed with their own two eyes UFOs, unidentified flying somethings, over America's nuclear sites when they were posted there. And they did something, and they can't explain what, to the missile systems down below.
Yeah, so you're going to have 6 retired members of the military now at the National Press Club in D.C. They're going to say these incidents go back to 1967, 1980. Now, they don't have any recent episodes. That could be because these gentlemen have all been retired for some time, so they haven't been in the loop. But they all say the same thing, that when they noticed these situations happening, they were all told, you cannot say anything about this. But here's my question, guys. Why would aliens only be interested in our nuclear facilities?
Because they know...
energy?
Yeah, they could be energy, or they might be saying, wow, this country over here looks really cool, and they seem to have the weapons, let's check it out. Let's say they were even more sophisticated than us, even more sophisticated than a Henry Kissinger.
Sure.
And let's say they actually shot beams of light. In 1980, evidently, they were saying they shot beams of light in an air base in England with the RAF, and we have... a joint base. And they also saw a disc-like object flying around. They also parlay that into a book called UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials that cite 120 retired and current officers who have had encounters with UFOs.
Sure. And if somebody ever steps off a UFO, or something, who would they, when they say, take me to your leader, who would that be? Would it be Barack Obama, the President of the United States? No. It would be somebody who has just been appointed to a post at the United Nations. Her name, Masla Othman, will head up the Office for Outer Space Affairs. There she is.
She's a physicist.
You're serious, right? We're now going to have, okay.
Yeah.
They spotted a bunch of galaxies far away, and they believe it's revolving around the sun. Looks a lot like us. So they thought to themselves, sooner or later they're going to come over here. We need someone we don't want any confusion about who should represent us, so we've chosen this Malaysian.
Take them to her office.
Right. Evidently she knows a lot of languages and focuses on physics. Personally, I think we should get a vote in this. I think we should get somebody with a little bit of an attitude, maybe a Bobby Knight or a Rex Ryan, to kind of scare away other potential life forms.
Richard Dreyfuss was great in that movie.
He'd be
Close
excellent.
Encounters. Yeah, if he's available.
And a very good debater.
Sure. Okay.
Coming up today at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., there's going to be an amazing announcement by 6 retired military personnel. What are they going to talk about? No, not military strategies about war. They say that they're going to confirm that they have seen UFOs throughout their careers, dating all the way back to 1967, and that they believe that these UFO craft, and whomever's inside of them, was tampering with nuclear sites that we have across the United States of America. There are 6 retired military personnel who are going to stand up there and say, we were told never to talk about this, but now we are.
And in fact, a couple of them have written some books and stuff like that. And we were reading, in the stuff we've seen so far about the testimony they've given and stories they've told, there's this one guy who said that he was in a bunker at, I think, a Minuteman site, and apparently some 30 to 50 foot wide disc was above one of these nuke missile sites, and they were given the order, hey, protect, and so suddenly the bells are ringing and stuff like that. And for some reason, the missile started malfunctioning. It never went off, obviously, but they think that for some reason these discs from wherever have been tampering with our nukes.
Dwayne Aronson, Bruce Fenstermacher, Robert Jamerson, Patrick McDonough, Jerry Nelson, Bob Salas, all officers, all are saying the same story about different incidents. Some served at different times. So there's a book out there, there's over 100 officers who claim the same thing. So this intelligence life, if this is indeed the case, and if there is the case, we'll lead with it tomorrow. They have identified us as the place to be, which is good for us.
Well, the United Nations knows that they're going to be doing this press conference today because now they're going to appoint a Earth contact ambassador for those aliens. Her name is Masla Othman, and she's going to be known as the leader of the Office for Outer Space Affairs.
This is great.
Seriously, UNUSA. This woman is now saying, look, we should be prepared for any of these encounters, and so now the United Nations is going to be funding this.
If I, for one, just hope whoever encounters us friendly. Just wants to talk. But Masla is the perfect person for this because she's a scientist. She's from Malaysia.
Right.
And she's not somebody who's going to put their personality first.
Sure.
She's going to go into the background and just speak for Earth in general.
You're right.
And when people, oftentimes the aliens, what's the first thing they'll say? Take me to your leader.
Right.
At least we could go, Masla, they're asking for you.
Sure.
Ring her bell, and even in the middle of the night, she's told to pick up.
But what if
you, the ambassador?
I would like to represent Masla to another from another planet.
Not a bad
I'd like
idea.
to represent the Earth.
What if a spacecraft from another entity came here looking for intelligent life?
Right.
What if they accidentally went to Washington, D.C.?
That would be a shame. Because they'd have to keep...
They'd never be able to land because there's a lot of hot air around there.
Absolutely.
Coming up on our show.
We turn to the topic of UFOs. The prompter said pause for music, which I did, and it actually worked pretty well. Spooky science fiction government cover-up or both. Our next guest calling for a formal investigation of unidentified flying objects. Leslie Kean, a journalist and author of the new book, UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. There's the book. You just saw Leslie. Let's have at it. We discussed the book, as you probably know, yesterday on the show. Benefit all of us briefly with the basic premise of your book, the most valid observations you feel like you have for the existence of UFOs.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, what the book does is it brings forward people from very high levels around the world, military people, generals, officials who have been head of government agencies that have investigated UFOs, and pilots who have encountered them. So it's kind of a grouping of these very high-level people that are bringing forth data, their own testimonies about what has happened, results of decades of research, government documents, physical evidence, all of them together. So, you know, when you read the cases, and the other important thing is that they have written their own pieces for this book. I'm not just quoting them and telling you what they say. Half the book is actually a compilation of pieces written by these individuals in their own words.
The professor who was with us yesterday was basically saying that you can rule out 95% of UFOs. It's the 5% that you can't rule out that you have to deal with.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's your premise.
Absolutely. I would agree with them 100%. And that the cases that are represented in the book are among that 5%. And what that 5% is it's sightings for which there is enough evidence that we can eliminate all options for explaining it. And cases that have been officially investigated, you know, that they're investigated enough so that we know there's no explanation for them.
So let me talk about a couple of the things. We ran through some of this various skeptics, of which you know there's no shortage in general. One of the issues that people have brought up as it pertains to the book is that pilots are not reliable sources. That pilots, by definition, are skewed towards better safe than sorry when they see something, whether it's dangerous or not, whether it's foreign or not, that their tendency, because it's rational on their part, is to basically observe whatever the aberration is and then split because they're flying an airplane and there's no reason to stick around and find out. But it doesn't mean that what they think they saw is what they saw.
I would disagree with that, and I've spoken to aviation experts, one of them who has written an extensive chapter in the book about aviation safety issues in UFOs, who happens, a lot of people believe that pilots are in fact our best trained observers. They're trained to recognize everything in the sky because the safety of their passengers is at stake. And they know what aircraft look like, what military aircraft look like, what bizarre weather phenomenon look like. I mean, they're trained. So I would have to disagree that they're not good observers.
And what about the argument that unexplained or unidentified, and if you can confirm it's unidentified, doesn't necessarily mean that it is foreign or that it is from another galaxy?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, nobody in this book who has, or the people that have witnessed these things, are claiming that these are from another galaxy, that they're extraterrestrial. The premise of the book is that there is a phenomenon there, but we do not know what it is.
And what is the phenomenon that you assert is there?
Well, it appears to be some kind of technological craft, objects that are flying around that demonstrate all kinds of capabilities that we don't have here, such as being able to hover and then zoom off at the blink of an eye. I mean, they're demonstrating physics that we cannot explain according to our own technological capabilities. And this is seen over and over again. These are what these people are documenting. And they do show up on radar. They leave marks on the ground. I mean, there's enough physical evidence of their presence that without a doubt there is something there. That's the point. What it is the question. It has not been explained yet.
Well, what is it?
we want to have happen now is for a proper scientific investigation to be done, to find out. I mean, everybody wants to know.
You're pretty...
A lot of people want to know.
Not everybody. I mean, some people might not want to know.
What I meant was a lot of people. A lot of people.
Fair enough. Because there might be some people, they may not care.
Well,
they might just want to get a hot dog.
A lot of people don't care. A lot of people do care, especially the ones who have seen them and want answers. I mean, with some of these people who see them, it changes your life.
How does it change your life?
Because you are seeing something so phenomenal that is not supposed to exist, that everybody around you says can't possibly be. You get ridiculed, people don't believe you, but you have seen it with your own eyes. And the governor of Arizona was one of these people, the former governor of Arizona, who has written from my book. He saw this thing in 1997 that hundreds, probably thousands of people saw in his own state, and he didn't even admit it until 10 years later. But it changed his life.
You're rough on the skeptics in your book. You say non-believers are dishonest, irrational, fear and ignorance. Can't skeptics ultimately, in the scientific process, don't you want to be skeptical in the scientific process? Isn't the root, the soul of the process skepticism?
Actually, the introduction to my book, I say we want skepticism. You have to define what skepticism really means. And what I think what you're talking about there is actually the people that we call debunkers, who are people that are just on a mission to prove, you know, they'll say anything to get across the point that UFOs don't exist, because they can't exist. It's they can't exist, so they don't exist. And these are the people that have not studied the data, don't read about it, can't talk about specific cases, and will just give you irrational explanations like the planet Venus for something, when planet Venus isn't even in the sky that night. That's happened. So there's a difference between a skeptic and a debunker. Skeptics, we welcome. We're all skeptics. We don't know what these things are.
So skeptics, yes, debunkers, no.
To be simple about it, yeah. But I mean, we separate in the book what the difference is between those two.
Do you think if aliens exist, they would bring capital that could flow into America to create jobs?
I think that if we discovered that we were being visited by extraterrestrials, which is a possibility given the data, it would change a lot of things, and it would have a lot of repercussions.
You think we'd have jobs?
Can't talk about jobs.
It's a pleasure.
But something bigger than that.
Bigger
something
than
more
jobs.
Important.
Here, a pleasure
the way
to meet
we
you.
see ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Leslie Kean, author of UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record, could change the way we see ourselves, and it might create a job or two. You could be an alien watcher. You could work at the alien port, unloading alien baggage.